Hello, this is Joe, and welcome to Team Franco Bodybuilding Podcast, and we are on episode number 36. Tonight, we're going to discuss repetitions, sets, and most importantly, how do we know when to increase the weight? This podcast is really geared towards anyone who might be struggling and maybe they just started to weight train and they're not really sure when they should increase the weight or by how much and those sort of details. So, beginner information, yes, but if you need a refresher and if you're stuck, it won't hurt to listen. And I'm going to also talk about block training and periodization for the more advanced lifter who's hitting a plateau and how they can be utilized and really help you break some barriers and get more gains. And I'm also going to discuss a case sample or a case example, and that is actually my now 18-year-old daughter. So let's pedal back. A few years back, probably even longer, I did a video about reps and sets. And I specifically did it because then I would embed that link to the video for new clients, or if new clients didn't read it and they had questions about how do I know to increase the weight and all that, I would show them the link instead of me typing it out. It was about a 5-6 minute video. It's still on YouTube. So I'm just gonna repeat some of that information here, but obviously since years have passed, I have more to add to it. So let's just take a beginner first, and they are doing a full body workout, okay? And they're focusing on squat, bench, deadlift, some secondary exercises in their workout, and they're training 3 times a week. And this is really what my daughter has been doing. It's always difficult to figure out like how many warm-up sets that you need to do, but it also relates to how strong you are. So for example, if some guy can squat 300 pounds, they're going to do multiple sets to warm up to get yourself to that point of doing 300 pounds for their working sets. So an example, if you are a pretty strong guy or girl and you can squat 225 or squat 315, this is what I'll do. I would suggest you start off with the bar. You can do 1 or 2 sets to train your body to get ready for the heavier exercises. And if you could do 315, then you go to the customary 135. And then maybe, if you're really strong, you can go straight to 225. And then 275, and then 315. But if you can squat 75 pounds, technically you're not going to do as many warm-up sets because you don't have the room there. And if you have the capability of using a barbell less than 40 pounds, that's not a bad idea. So to get to 75 pounds, you may need only 2 or 3 sets, where to get to 315, you could do 3 to 4 sets. So that's one of the take-home points. The stronger that you get, the greater that you need to warm up, not only to get the body ready and to be in a safe manner, but also get the body adjusted. Because on the flip side, sometimes I'll review people's weight training and they won't do that many sets at all, and the heavier weight is just too much. Where if they could squat 315, they may jump, right to 135 for their first set, 225 and 315, and it's a load on their back where they can only get a couple reps. There is a science to getting the body lubricated, to getting the blood flowing so you can handle that heavy weight. And I'm going to go into greater detail in a second. It's really hard for me, though, to give great specifics because everyone's a little bit different. But so that's why these are guidelines. Every once in a while on my private team page for my clients, I'll throw it up. All right, guys, who needs questions on how to set up their weights and sets leading up to a particular exercise? And I'll just break it down. One of the biggest keys is that each passing set or the following set is less weight. Okay? So the difference is less. So again, if you can squat 225, you start with the bar, you go to 135, which is then a 90-pound difference. Then you would go to, say, for example, 175, which is a 40-pound difference from 135. You go to 205, which is a 30-pound difference, and then you do your working sets with 225. So with each passing set, the difference is either equal or less. That's what I've been doing my whole life, and it seems to work out really well. So that is something that you would also do and apply to your training, that each passing set becomes a little bit less. Another application that I do for myself that I try to teach my clients is that the set right before your working set is almost like you're setting yourself up. So, for example, if you're working with 5 reps as your working sets. Now, working sets to me, again, is basically the ones that count, because those are the challenging working out sets that you are doing. So we'll take the 225 for squat example, and I'll just break it down. So you start with 45 pounds, do it 15 to 20 reps, really get the blood flowing. You go to 135, then it's old school pyramiding that I'm talking about. As the weight goes up, the reps come down. So then you go to 135 and you do 12 repetitions. And then you go to 175, you go to 8 repetitions. So the goal when you hit 225 is 3 sets of 5. Okay, 3 sets of 5 reps. So then when you hit the 205, you only do 5 reps. So you're doing the same amount of repetitions that you do for your working sets, because you don't want to knock yourself out too much. It's basically getting yourself ready to handle those few extra pounds for the working set. That is what I do and what I try to help people to do. So then when you hit that 225, the goal is now 5 reps for 3 sets. Now, most people, when they do that 225, they're going to do as many repetitions that they can, and so they're going to burn themselves out and not have enough go juice for the second and third set. It's all about volume. So, for example, 225, you can do 5, somewhat easy. You stop at 5. Your second set, it's a little bit more challenging, but you still can get 5. Your third set, that is your all-out set. So if you're doing 3 working sets, that last set is the set that you want to go balls out and push it as hard as you can. So for example, again, you do 225 for 5, and then you get 6. Well, to me, that's a win. So that's a good amount of volume. You hit your goal repetitions for those working sets. So the next time, and this is the big question, how much weight do I add? I say you add the smallest amount possible. So you add 5 pounds. So therefore, you're doing 230 the next time, and you try to get to 3 5s again. Now, if you did the 225 in that third set, you only got 2 or 3 on the last one, then you stick with it. Basically, you stick with the 225 until you hit that goal. If, for example, you did your 5 reps with 225, another 5, and then you doubled it up and got 10 reps. Well, guess what? I would add 10 pounds. So the next time you do that particular exercise with the 2 1/4, go to 235. I mean, it will level off, eventually. So what I've been discussing now for the last few minutes is basically linear training. With each passing workout, you simply add a little bit more weight to the working sets. Now, the warm-up sets are going to have to adjust, because going back to the principle about each passing set should equal or be less, so you may need to bump up, the few sets before, just because you want to equal it out. That's linear. Now, I've talked about before in previous podcasts, I believe, volume. Volume is weight times sets times reps, and you calculate it out and you get a big number. So we're focusing on the volume for your working sets. If you add 5 pounds and you equal the amount of repetitions that you were going for your 3 working sets, you're doing more volume with each passing time that you do that squat. That is what brings on muscle growth. Overload, the overload principle. It's just that's what weight training's all about. Because I have clients that will say, Joe, what about this workout or this one? I mean, obviously, I think mine are the best. And just because I've written them up, I've tried them and had clients with success. But I'm like, yeah, you want to try it? Go for it. Try that workout. But still keep the idea that you still want to increase the weight when you can. Because that's what changes the body. That's what gives you more muscle over time with a proper diet and all that good stuff. So that's linear, and that's how you apply. So if you hit your 3 sets, I mean, it could be 2 if you're a beginner doing 2 working sets, or if you're more advanced, you want to do a 5x5 or 4 sets of 8, whatever the repetition is. It's trivial. If you can match what you want to do, then next time you add a little bit of weight. If it's a struggle, yes, you add 5 pounds or 2.5, meaning that if you just hit it. If you do less repetitions, you stick with that weight. If on that last all-out set you blow past it, add 10. Certain exercises you will have that kind of progress. Now, if you're doing a smaller muscle group like biceps, triceps, or shoulders, like side laterals, you're not going to be making such great gains, only because it's a smaller muscle group. You're not doing a compound exercise, so therefore it's going to be slower. But here's the takeaway point with that. So you train multiple exercises for your shoulders. You're doing the overhead press where you are applying the linear progress and just adding weight. And then your second shoulder exercise is a side lateral. And you're like, Joe, I'm stuck on 20 pounds. I do a warm-up set for 15 pounds for 10 reps. Then I want to do 20 pounds for 3 sets, but I just can't do the 3 sets of 10. Although my first exercise is going up. Well, guess what? Your total volume for your shoulders for those 2 particular exercises are still increasing. It's because you got to look at the total of work that you're doing. So don't get discouraged if the secondary movements or exercises for any particular muscle group is not increasing the way that you like. Because if the first one is, the second and third one for that muscle group is going to suffer because it's pre-fatiguing. You're fatiguing it out, and that's okay. That's what's supposed to be happening. So don't get freaked out over that. Now, obviously, when you jump into a second exercise, you're going to be warmed up. You're not going to need nearly as many warm-up sets. You can just do one warm-up set, or what I call a simulation, to get used to the movement, and then go right into your actual 3 or 4 working sets. That's linear. That's what I'm moving my hands around to be, doing a graph here, but that's linear. That's what you want to do, and that's very effective for someone just starting out, to teach them how to do that. Up to 2 or 3 years of training, and you're just going to make skyrocketed gains. Now, the caveat is you need to write everything down. You need to have a notebook or keep a track on your phone or whatever app you were using, but you need to see what you did. And what I do, I use linear training, and I use progressive overload when it comes to periodization, and I'm going to talk about that next. But I'll make notes. So, for example, I squatted 225, 3 sets of 5, and I banged it out, and it was no problem. I'll write down that I'm going to do 230 for my next workout in advance. If it was more challenging, then I'll just, make a note of saying, equals, use the same weight, whatever it is. So these little details, to me is like setting mini goals from week to week when you train each muscle group, teaching yourself how to get better, training, and getting stronger. Now, periodization, what is that? I mean, it's basically what a power lifter will do. they will train at submaximal levels. They won't go balls to wall all the time, nor, and especially if you like plateaued out, like eventually things are going to stop. So take that 225 squat again, and you built it up to 255, 3 sets of 5, or maybe you're doing 3 sets of 3, and you're like, oh, I just can't do it any, I just can't improve upon and just make that linear progress. What should I do? There are plenty of versions out there where you can plug in an estimated 1 rep max, then spits out numbers with different percentages. I have one called VIP. It's more towards bodybuilding because the reps are a little bit higher and the volume's a little bit greater. And then there's ones called by Jim Windler 531, and he's had excuse me, plenty of different variations of it, and I'm using that now for a couple of my exercises. And basically all it does is that you're training at submax levels at different percentages. So one workout might be at 70% of your 1 rep max. The other one might be 80, and then 90. And if you complete it all and you hit all the reps, the next wave, you add 5 or 10 pounds, spits out the numbers, and you just follow what it tells you. So it's dummy proof because it's going to tell you what to do. And you're not going to be going balls out all the time. Although I still incorporate that all out set just to burn it out. But it's a great way of building momentum and breaking a plateau if the linear type of progress is, eventually stalls. If you have questions about any of those, the VIP or 531, you can Google it, or you can email me and I can send you some spreadsheets if you're interested. So that's the other avenue that you can take if you are a more seasoned, weightlifter and you've hit these plateaus for the big exercises. Doing a periodization is an awesome way because you're working the muscle groups, first of all, different rep ranges, and it's like almost like a built-in deload week when you do the lower percentage. And then it's just a great revolution of just keep on tracking. And yeah, in time, you may plateau with that. And if that is the case, maybe then change up the exercise. Or you go back to linear type of training, adding weight each time on your own, but at a lesser weight so you can build the momentum up. Now, I was going to talk about my daughter. She's a great example because she just started weight training in August. And I prescribed her a full body split. So she was doing same thing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She started off using the trap bar squat because I wanted to teach her basically, correct form and all that good stuff. And then she's like, Dad, I want to learn how to back squat. So I'm like, yeah, sure. And this just shows you that consistency and adding weight each time is key. Now, granted, she has an advantage because she's a lot younger. The hormones are in a great place, a lot more energy than someone who's, 48. But the principle is still there. So squatting, she first started off doing 2 warm-up sets, 45, 65, and then 85. She would just go all out. She handled that well. So what she would do, and this is what you can do, is that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, she would use the same weight, but on that last set of the same weight, she would try to beat the repetitions that she had. And then the next week, she would add 5 or 10 pounds to her working set while gradually building up the warm-up sets. She's been doing this for, it's April 1st, I believe, since December. So it's, 3.5 months of squatting 3 times a week. And now, just tonight, she did 185, 2 sets of 10. Now, granted, it's a huge jump. It's because of her age, and it's weight training's new to her. But following the principle of doing her now she has more warm-up sets, like I talked before, because she's lifting more weight and she needs it. And so when she does the 185, she'll do the 45, 95, 135, and then she did 155 as her setup set, and then 185. So the next week, we're going to probably adjust those to, accommodate, because she's going to try 195. But what she would do, and what I've taught her, is that 185, for example, she did 3 times this week, each Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or actually Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, because of her cheer schedule. She would do the 10 reps and then go for as many as she can on the second working set. And she built it up to 2 double 10s. So it's just, now I'm losing my train of thought. So basically my whole point is with her example is sticking with the same exercises and trying a little bit more weight each time and being methodic about it and writing it down are the super important points to making progress for your rep sets and weight. Because you're going back to what I said before, you're increasing volume. Increasing volume leads to muscle growth, and that's why you get stronger, then you can handle more weight. So I'm going to wrap this one up. I think I covered everything. Usually when I click stop, I'm like, oh shit, I could be adding more stuff. So I'm trying to brainstorm here. So a quick summary is that, if you're a beginner to more advanced person, linear training is still really good. Typically start off lighter so you can build the momentum up. If you're doing 3 working sets, the first 2 hit your goal rep. The third set, go all out, and that will help monitor on how much weight you should try next time. If you can only match what your goal rep is or do 1 or 2 more reps, then I would suggest to add 5 pounds. If you can do 3, 4, 5 more repetitions than what is called for, then you add 10. And this is a gradual process. If you hit a sticking point eventually, then you would want to look into a periodization type program. All right, I think that's it. So hopefully, guys, this one's been helpful. Any questions or concerns, you can always reach out to me at fitfranco@verizon.net. If you have any ideas for podcasts or things that you want to hear, reach out to me. If you're interested in physique coaching for stepping on stage, looking your best for the summer, check out my website, teamfrancobodybuilding.com, or hit me up on Facebook in a few different places. I'll talk to you soon, guys.